There are some lines that should never be crossed, no matter how badly you want to win. But what happened on Family Feud in October 2024 would test the very limits of human decency. When a contestant thought he could gain an advantage by mocking a child with cerebral palsy, Steve Harvey did something that sent shockwaves through the entertainment industry and reminded America that protecting the innocent is more important than any game or prize. This is the story of how one man's cruelty was met with swift justice, and how a young boy's courage inspired millions around the world. Before we witness this incredible moment of justice and compassion, if you believe in standing up for children and protecting those who cannot defend themselves, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. We bring you stories that celebrate courage, defend human dignity, and show what true character looks like when it matters most. The Martinez family walked onto the Family Feud stage with a mixture of excitement and nervous energy that was immediately apparent to everyone watching. At the center stood Robert Martinez, a 41-year-old high school teacher from Phoenix, Arizona. Beside him were his wife, Alina, a pediatric nurse, his 17-year-old daughter, Sophia, his 14-year-old son, Diego, and the person who meant more to him than life itself, his 10-year-old son, Lucas. Lucas Martinez had been born with cerebral palsy, a condition that affected his muscle coordination and movement. He used a specialized wheelchair that he controlled with a joystick, and his speech required patience and understanding to comprehend fully. But anyone who spent time with Lucas quickly discovered that his physical challenges had done nothing to diminish his brilliant mind, his infectious sense of humor, or his boundless enthusiasm for life. Lucas was obsessed with game shows, particularly Family Feud. He had watched hundreds of episodes, memorizing common answers and studying Steve Harvey's reactions with the dedication of a true fan. When his family decided to apply for the show, Lucas had been the driving force behind the application. He had helped them practice, coached them on strategy, and insisted on being part of the competing family despite the physical challenges it would present. Robert and Alina had initially been hesitant. They worried about the logistics of getting Lucas on stage, about whether the fast-paced nature of the game would be too challenging, and most of all about whether their son might face unkindness from competitors or even from the audience. But Lucas had been adamant. "Dad," he had said in his deliberate speech pattern, "I want to show people that I can do everything they can do. I just do it differently." The Family Feud producers had been wonderful, making all necessary accommodations to ensure Lucas could participate fully. They had installed a ramp for his wheelchair, adjusted the podium heights, and given the family extra time during practice rounds to ensure Lucas felt comfortable and confident. The production team had fallen in love with Lucas during rehearsals, charmed by his wit, his determination, and his genuine love for the show. Steve Harvey had spent extra time with Lucas before taping, kneeling beside his wheelchair to talk eye to eye, asking about his favorite episodes and laughing at Lucas's surprisingly accurate impressions of Steve's own facial expressions. The two had formed an immediate bond, with Steve later telling the crew that Lucas reminded him why he loved doing the show, to bring joy to families and to celebrate the best of human spirit. Lucas wore his favorite blue shirt with a bow tie for the taping, insisting on looking his best for his Family Feud debut. His wheelchair was decorated with small Family Feud logos that Sophia had helped him design and attach. Despite his physical limitations, Lucas radiated confidence and joy, his face beaming with excitement as he waited for the game to begin. The family they were competing against was the Thompson family from Oklahoma, led by 45-year-old Marcus Thompson. Marcus was a successful real estate developer who had brought along his wife, 2 adult sons, and his business partner. From the moment of introductions, there was a noticeable edge to Marcus's competitiveness. He had made several comments during the pre-show waiting period about being there to win, not to make friends, and about doing whatever it took to claim the prize. When the Martinez family was introduced, and Steve mentioned Lucas's participation despite his cerebral palsy, the audience had erupted in warm applause. Most people recognized the courage it took for a child with physical disabilities to step into the spotlight of national television. But Marcus Thompson's expression had been harder to read, a tight smile that did not quite reach his eyes. What none of them knew was that this game show appearance would become something far more significant than a competition for prize money. It would become a defining moment about human decency, the protection of vulnerable children, and the responsibility that comes with having a public platform. The game began with the customary face-off between the two family leaders. Robert Martinez and Marcus Thompson stepped forward to compete for the first question. Steve Harvey stood between them, his characteristic energy filling the studio. "Name something you might find in a teenager's bedroom," Steve asked with a knowing grin. Marcus hit the buzzer first. "Dirty clothes," he called out. The board revealed that dirty clothes was indeed the number 2 answer. The Thompson family chose to play rather than pass, and the game moved forward through its standard rhythm. The Thompson family played well, accumulating points with solid answers. The Martinez family watched from their side, with Lucas quietly coaching his family members, whispering suggestions about what answers might be on the board. After the first round, the Thompson family had taken a comfortable lead. The second round began with a new face-off question. This time, it was Sophia Martinez against one of the Thompson sons. Sophia answered correctly, and the Martinez family chose to play. The question was about things people do on vacation. Elena gave a strong answer about visiting museums, which appeared on the board. Diego followed with swimming, another good response. Then it was Lucas's turn. Steve Harvey moved to kneel beside Lucas's wheelchair, holding the microphone to ensure Lucas could be heard clearly. "All right, Lucas, my man," Steve said warmly. "What is something people do on vacation?" Lucas took his time, as he always did when speaking, to form his words carefully. "Take pictures," he said, his speech requiring the patience and attention that those who knew him well provided automatically. Steve smiled broadly. "Take pictures, I like that answer. Show me take pictures." The board lit up. Taking pictures was the number 1 answer. The audience erupted in applause, and Lucas's face broke into the biggest smile anyone had ever seen. His family members high-fived him, and even some of the Thompson family members initially clapped along with the audience response. The game continued with Robert giving another correct answer, and suddenly the Martinez family was mounting a comeback. The score was getting close, and the momentum had shifted. During a commercial break, the families had a moment to relax and regroup. This was when Marcus Thompson made a comment that would change everything. He was talking to his family in what he thought was a private huddle, but his voice carried farther than he realized, and several crew members heard him clearly. "We are losing ground because they are taking forever with that kid," Marcus said dismissively. "They are getting extra time to think because he talks so slow. It is not fair. We should complain." One of his sons tried to quiet him, clearly uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation, but Marcus continued. "I am serious. This is a timed game. They are getting an unfair advantage." A production assistant immediately alerted the producers, who in turn informed Steve Harvey. When filming resumed, there was a new tension in the air. Steve's usual playful demeanor had been replaced by something more serious, though he continued the game professionally. The next round began, and it was Lucas's turn again at the podium. The question was about things people are afraid of. Lucas had been thinking about his answer during the break, and when Steve approached with the microphone, Lucas was ready. "Being made fun of," Lucas said carefully, each word deliberate and clear. The studio fell silent for a moment. It was an answer that clearly came from personal experience, and the raw honesty of it touched everyone present. Steve looked at Lucas with visible emotion. "Being made fun of," Steve repeated softly. "That is a real answer right there. Show me being made fun of." The board revealed it as the number 3 answer, though in that moment the point seemed secondary to the profound truth Lucas had spoken. The audience applauded again, this time with a different quality, a recognition of the courage it took to voice that vulnerability on national television. As the game progressed toward its conclusion, the Martinez family continued to perform well, ultimately winning the main game and qualifying for fast money. But before they could celebrate, something happened that would overshadow the game itself. Marcus Thompson, frustrated by his family's loss and apparently forgetting that microphones were still active, made another comment that was caught clearly on audio. "Well, congratulations," he said with obvious sarcasm. "I guess we just could not compete against the sympathy vote. Bring a disabled kid on stage and everyone gives you extra time and pity points." The studio went completely silent. Production staff looked at each other in shock. The Thompson family members looked horrified, particularly Marcus's wife and sons, who clearly had not shared his callous attitude. But most importantly, Lucas had heard the comment. His smile faded, replaced by a look of hurt that broke the hearts of everyone who witnessed it. Steve Harvey stood frozen for a moment, processing what he had just heard. Then his expression hardened into something that regular viewers would recognize immediately. It was the look that meant someone had crossed a line that should never be crossed. What happened next would become one of the most powerful moments in television history. Steve Harvey walked to the center of the stage, positioning himself between both families. The cameras continued rolling, capturing every moment of what was about to unfold. The audience sat in absolute silence, sensing that something significant was happening. "Stop everything," Steve said, his voice carrying an authority that commanded immediate attention. "We need to address something right now." He turned to face Marcus Thompson directly. "Marcus, I heard what you just said. Everyone heard what you just said, and I want to make sure I understood you correctly. Did you just suggest that this family won because they brought a disabled kid to gain sympathy?" Marcus, realizing that his private complaint had been made public, tried to backtrack. "I was just frustrated, Steve. It is a competitive game, and I felt like things were not quite fair." "Not quite fair," Steve repeated, his voice rising. "Let me tell you what is not fair, Marcus. What is not fair is a 10-year-old boy who has to work 10 times harder than other kids just to do basic things that we all take for granted. What is not fair is a child who faces stares and whispers and cruelty from people who do not take the time to see past his wheelchair to the brilliant, funny, loving person he is. What is not fair is that this young man had to hear you, a grown adult, dismiss his achievements as sympathy votes." The audience began to applaud, but Steve raised his hand, signaling he was far from finished. Lucas Martinez did not get extra time to think. Lucas Martinez took the same amount of time as every other contestant. Yes, his speech is different. Yes, it requires patience to listen, but that does not mean he is getting special treatment. That means we are treating him with the basic human dignity and respect that every person deserves. Steve walked over to Lucas, kneeling beside his wheelchair again. "Lucas, can I tell this man something about you?" Lucas nodded, his eyes still showing the hurt from Marcus's comments. Steve turned back to Marcus. "This young man watches Family Feud every single day. He has memorized hundreds of episodes. He knows the common answers better than some of my staff. He coached his family for weeks to prepare for this appearance. When he gave the #1 answer about taking pictures, that was not sympathy. That was skill. That was knowledge. That was a smart, dedicated kid who earned his moment." Robert Martinez, Lucas's father, stepped forward, his voice shaking with emotion. "My son has faced more challenges in his 10 years than most of us will face in a lifetime. Every day he works with physical therapists, speech therapists, and occupational therapists just to do things that come easily to other children. And through it all, he never complains. He never asks why him. He just works harder and maintains the most positive attitude of anyone I have ever known. To suggest that his achievements are just pity is to diminish everything he has overcome." Alina, Lucas's mother, added through tears, "When Lucas wanted to be on this show, we were scared. We were scared that people would not understand him. We were scared that he might face exactly this kind of cruelty. But Lucas insisted. He said he wanted to show people that having a disability does not make you less capable. It just means you are differently capable. He believed that people would see past his wheelchair to who he really is. He had more faith in humanity than we did." The audience was openly crying now. Even the production crew, hardened professionals who had seen countless emotional moments, were visibly moved. Steve Harvey himself had tears streaming down his face. Marcus Thompson stood silently, his face red with shame. His wife spoke up, her voice filled with disgust. "Marcus, I am ashamed of you. That is a child, a beautiful, brave child who has done nothing wrong. How dare you?" Steve turned his attention back to Marcus. "You know what the saddest part of this is?" Lucas answered that he is afraid of being made fun of. He spoke that truth from his heart, from his lived experience. And within minutes you proved exactly why that fear is justified. You became the very thing he is afraid of. The weight of Steve's words hung in the air. Marcus looked down at the floor, unable to meet anyone's eyes. "I have been hosting this show for a long time," Steve continued. "I have seen thousands of contestants. I have watched families compete, celebrate, and sometimes disappoint. But I have never, and I mean never, witnessed an adult mock a child's disability on my stage. This crosses every line of human decency." Steve made his decision with absolute certainty. "Marcus Thompson, you and your family are disqualified from this competition. You need to leave this stage immediately. This show celebrates families. It celebrates love, unity, and the best of what people can be. It is not a platform for cruelty toward children." Marcus tried to protest. "You cannot do this. We have rights." "You have the right to your opinions," Steve responded firmly, "but you do not have the right to mock a disabled child on national television. You do not have the right to diminish a young boy's achievements. And you certainly do not have the right to remain on this stage after what you have said and done. Security will escort you out." As security personnel approached, Marcus's wife made a decision. "Marcus, you go with security. The rest of us are staying to apologize properly to this family and to Lucas." Marcus looked shocked. "You are siding with them over me?" "I am siding with human decency over cruelty," his wife responded. "I am siding with a child over an adult who should know better. Go, I will deal with you later." As Marcus was escorted from the studio, his wife and sons approached the Martinez family. Marcus's wife knelt in front of Lucas's wheelchair, tears streaming down her face. Lucas, I am so sorry. What my husband said was wrong, cruel, and unforgivable. You are amazing. You won that game fair and square because you are smart and talented. Please do not let his words make you doubt yourself for even a second. Lucas looked at her with his characteristic kindness. It is okay, he said slowly. Some people do not understand yet, maybe. He will learn. The grace and forgiveness in Lucas's response left everyone stunned. This 10-year-old child who had just been cruelly mocked was offering understanding and hope for his mocker's growth. It was a moment that demonstrated a level of emotional maturity and compassion that shamed every adult in the room. Steve Harvey stood in the center of the stage, looking at Lucas with unmistakable admiration. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, addressing the audience and cameras, "we just witnessed something remarkable. A child who has every right to be angry, to be hurt, to lash out, instead chose grace. Lucas Martinez just taught all of us what true strength looks like." After the confrontation concluded, and Marcus Thompson had been removed from the studio, Steve Harvey made an unprecedented decision. He announced that the Martinez family would proceed to fast money without any competing family, playing solely for the experience and the prize money they had rightfully earned. But before they did, Steve asked if Lucas would be willing to participate in the fast money round alongside his father. Lucas's face lit up with joy. It had been his dream to play fast money, and now he would get his chance. The questions were read. Robert went first and scored a solid 132 points. Then it was Lucas's turn. Steve knelt beside the wheelchair as always, holding the microphone steady. The questions came, and Lucas answered each one with careful deliberation. When the final answers were revealed, Lucas had scored an additional 89 points, bringing their total to 221 points, well over the 200 needed to win. But the score was secondary to the image of a father and son celebrating together, Lucas pumping his fist in victory while his family surrounded him with love and pride. After the cameras stopped rolling for the official taping, Steve Harvey asked the Martinez family if they would stay for an extended conversation that would be included when the episode aired. What followed was a discussion that would touch millions of hearts. Steve sat down with Lucas, speaking to him directly with the respect he would give any adult. "Lucas, can you tell me what it was like when you heard what Marcus said?" Lucas took his time answering, as he always did. "It hurt," he said honestly, "because I worked really hard. To be here I wanted, to show people that I can do things." When he said, it was just sympathy. It felt like he did not see me, he only saw my wheelchair. "What do you want people to see when they look at you?" Steve asked gently. Lucas smiled. "I want them to see Lucas. I like video games and science and Family Feud. I tell jokes, and I am good at math. I have cerebral palsy, but that is just one thing about me. It is not all of me." The simplicity and wisdom of Lucas's answer resonated powerfully. Steve turned to address the cameras directly. "Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to listen to what this young man just said. He wants to be seen as a whole person, not just as his disability. That is something every person with a disability has been trying to tell us for generations. They are not their wheelchairs. They are not their conditions. They are complete human beings with interests, talents, dreams, and personalities. It is time we listen." When the episode aired 3 weeks later, the response was unlike anything Family Feud had ever experienced. The clip of Steve Harvey defending Lucas went viral within hours, accumulating tens of millions of views. But this time, the story reached far beyond typical viral content. It sparked a national conversation about disability rights, inclusion, and the ways society treats people with disabilities. Disability advocacy organizations praised Steve Harvey and the show for giving Lucas a platform and for defending him so powerfully. Parents of children with disabilities shared the clip with their kids, using it as an example of standing up against bullying and discrimination. The response from the disability community was overwhelming. Thousands of people shared their own stories of being dismissed, underestimated, or mocked because of their disabilities. They expressed gratitude for seeing someone with a platform use it to defend and celebrate disability rather than exploit it for sympathy or inspiration porn. Schools across the country began using the clip as a teaching tool about disability awareness, inclusion, and standing up against bullying. The segment where Lucas explained what he wanted people to see became part of diversity and inclusion training programs in corporations, healthcare facilities, and educational institutions. The Martinez family received hundreds of thousands of messages of support. Robert's school held a special assembly to honor Lucas, with students creating a massive banner that read, "We see you, Lucas," featuring drawings and messages from every student in the school. But perhaps the most unexpected development came from Marcus Thompson himself. 2 weeks after the episode aired, he released a public video statement that went viral in its own right. In the video, Marcus sat alone, no defensive posture, no excuses. "I owe Lucas Martinez and his family an apology that goes far beyond words," he said, his voice heavy with genuine remorse. "What I said on that stage came from a place of ignorance, frustration, and privilege. I have never had to think about disability because it has never affected me directly. I made assumptions about fairness without understanding what fairness actually means." He continued, "Since the incident, I have done a lot of soul-searching and a lot of learning. I have spoken with disability advocates who have helped me understand how my words perpetuate harmful attitudes. I have watched Lucas's interview a dozen times, each time recognizing more clearly how wrong I was. Lucas won that game through skill and knowledge. He earned every point, and his grace in forgiving me showed a character that I clearly lack." Marcus went on to announce that he would be donating $50,000 to a cerebral palsy research foundation and committing to volunteer work with children with disabilities. "I cannot undo what I said," he concluded, "but I can commit to being better, to learning, and to using this shameful moment as a catalyst for real change in my own life and attitudes." The Martinez family, true to the grace they had shown throughout, released a statement accepting Marcus's apology and commending his commitment to education and growth. Steve Harvey used his talk show platform to continue the conversation about disability rights and inclusion. He interviewed disability advocates, highlighted the achievements of people with disabilities in various fields, and challenged his audience to examine their own assumptions and biases. The $20,000 the Martinez family won was used in part to establish an adaptive technology program at Lucas's school, providing devices and software that would help students with various disabilities participate more fully in classroom activities. The program was named the Lucas Martinez Inclusion Initiative. 6 months after the episode aired, Family Feud invited the Martinez family back for a special reunion segment. This time they were joined by other families who had members with various disabilities, creating a powerful celebration of diversity and inclusion. During the reunion, Lucas had grown in confidence. His speech was still deliberate, but he spoke with an assurance that came from knowing he had touched millions of lives. Steve asked him what had changed since the original episode. "People see me differently now," Lucas said. "Or maybe the same people see me better when I go places," people say. "They saw me on TV. They tell me I am brave, but I do not feel brave. I just feel like me." Steve smiled at that. "That is exactly the point, Lucas. You are just being yourself, but sometimes it takes courage just to be yourself when the world makes it hard." The reunion episode also featured a surprise. The producers had arranged for Lucas to meet some of his heroes, disabled athletes and advocates who had accomplished extraordinary things. Watching Lucas's face light up as he met these role models was a reminder of the importance of representation and visibility. 1 year after the original episode, the impact continued to reverberate. Family Feud had implemented comprehensive accessibility measures for all tapings, ensuring that contestants with disabilities could participate fully. The show began actively recruiting families with disabled members, recognizing that their stories deserved to be told and celebrated. Other television programs followed suit, creating more opportunities for people with disabilities to appear not as objects of pity or inspiration, but as regular people living their lives, competing in games, and sharing their personalities with audiences. Lucas himself became an unexpected advocate for disability rights. He started a YouTube channel where he talked about his daily life, answered questions about cerebral palsy, and reviewed video games from an accessibility perspective. His honest, funny, and insightful content attracted millions of subscribers. When a major video game company saw Lucas's accessibility reviews, they hired him as a consultant to help design better adaptive controls for their games. At just 11 years old, Lucas was influencing how major entertainment companies thought about inclusion. The segment from Family Feud was studied in medical schools as part of disability awareness training for future doctors. It was used in therapy sessions to help children with disabilities process their feelings about discrimination. It became a cultural touchstone for discussions about ableism and inclusion. 3 years after the original episode, Steve Harvey was honored by multiple disability advocacy organizations for his defense of Lucas and his continued advocacy for disability rights. During his acceptance speech, he reflected on that day. "When I knelt beside Lucas's wheelchair that day, I was not just defending a contestant on my show. I was defending a child, a human being who deserved respect and dignity. Marcus Thompson's comments revealed an attitude that too many people hold, whether they say it out loud or not. The idea that accommodating disability is giving unfair advantage, that achievements by disabled people are less valid, that their participation is about sympathy rather than capability. All of that is wrong. All of that needed to be challenged. He continued, but the real hero of that day was not me, it was Lucas, a 10-year-old boy who, when faced with cruelty, responded with grace, who, when given the opportunity to be angry, chose understanding, who, when mocked for his disability, calmly explained what he wanted people to see instead. That is the kind of character we should all aspire to. The Martinez family remained close with Steve Harvey over the years. Attended Lucas's middle school graduation and continued to follow his advocacy work with pride. Steve often said that meeting Lucas had changed his perspective on disability and had made him a better person and a better host. Today, when people discuss that Family Feud episode, they talk about several important lessons. They talk about the importance of defending children against adult cruelty. They talk about how disability does not diminish capability, it just changes how things are done. They talk about the power of representation and visibility for disabled people in media. And they talk about Lucas Martinez, a boy who wanted to be seen for who he was and who taught millions of people to see disability differently. The episode has been used in countless educational settings, from elementary school anti-bullying programs to corporate diversity trainings. It has sparked policy changes in schools, workplaces, and public spaces to improve accessibility and inclusion. It has encouraged parents of disabled children to advocate more boldly for their kids and to expect full inclusion rather than accepting segregation or lesser opportunities. Lucas, now a teenager, continues to face challenges related to his cerebral palsy, but he faces them with the same determination and positive attitude that captured hearts on Family Feud. He still watches game shows, though now with a more critical eye toward how they represent disability. He dreams of one day hosting his own accessible gaming show where players of all abilities can compete on equal footing. When asked about that day on Family Feud, Lucas always brings the conversation back to a simple truth. I just wanted to play a game with my family, that is all. The fact that it became bigger shows we still have work to do because it should not be remarkable for a disabled kid to be on TV. It should be normal. His words cut to the heart of the ongoing struggle for disability inclusion. The goal is not to celebrate disabled people as heroes for living their lives, but to recognize them as ordinary people deserving of the same opportunities, respect, and dignity as everyone else. As we close this powerful story, remember that every person, regardless of their physical or mental capabilities, deserves to be seen for who they are as a complete human being. Disability does not diminish worth, capability, or the right to participate fully in society. The next time you encounter someone with a disability, remember Lucas Martinez and his simple request. See the person, not just the condition. If this story touched your heart, if it challenged you to think differently about disability, or if it inspired you to stand up against discrimination, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. We share stories that matter, stories that defend human dignity, and stories that remind us of our shared humanity and the courage it takes to create a more inclusive world. The lesson from that day on Family Feud is clear. Mocking someone's disability is never acceptable, no matter the circumstances. Children with disabilities deserve to be celebrated for their achievements, not dismissed as sympathy cases. Accommodation is not unfair advantage, it is basic equality. And when we witness cruelty toward vulnerable people, we have a responsibility to speak up, just as Steve Harvey did. Lucas Martinez continues to inspire everyone who knows his story. He proves that disability does not define capability, only method. He shows us that grace in the face of cruelty is more powerful than anger. And he reminds us that the true measure of a society is how it treats its most vulnerable members, particularly its children with disabilities. Steve Harvey continues to use his platform to celebrate diversity, defend human dignity, and stand against all forms of discrimination and bullying. The Martinez family continues to advocate for disability inclusion, building on the foundation that Lucas's courage created. And millions of viewers carry with them the memory of a moment when television became more than entertainment. It became a lesson in defending the defenseless, celebrating difference, and recognizing the humanity in every person. That is the true legacy of the day Steve Harvey shut down a man who mocked a disabled child on the Family Feud stage. It was not just about removing someone from a game show. It was about affirming that children with disabilities deserve protection, respect, and the opportunity to shine. It was about challenging ableist attitudes that diminished disabled people's achievements. And it was about one brave 10-year-old boy who just wanted to be seen for who he truly was, and in being seen, helped millions of others be seen too.